Hi guys, my name is Michel with Michel Real Estate. And in this video, I will answer the question from one of our subscribers on YouTube and Facebook. He or she asked me why the real estate price is so high in Luxembourg and why does it climb so fast? In my opinion, it is way too easy to say, well, it's a question of supply and demand. More supply means less demand, and more demand means less supply. No, if there's a deficit in this market, it would mean that there's not enough supply and that there's more people looking for something, and that makes the price go up. Too easy, I say. There are different actors on the field, on the real estate market here in Luxembourg, which all have their say and all are involved in the rise of the real estate prices here in Luxembourg. The main actors on the field are of course the politicians. They determine policy, and a simple signature could change the entire course of the real estate market. But a quick course change might be very detrimental. Now, politicians also have a livelihood which is determined by the office that they hold. So, in order to either maintain or assure that in the future they will get that spot within the state, they of course need to get votes. The easiest way to get votes is to basically tackle or at least try to handle subjects or find solutions for subjects which are in high demand amongst the population. And of course, real estate is one of those subjects. There is an issue. It's even called a crisis by now, and so politicians left and right try to either jump on this subject and try to find a solution for it in order to get votes for the next elections. But the solutions are not there, and at the end of the video I will tell you exactly why I think they are not there. The next actor on this field is of course the state. The state has a large say into what happens on the real estate market. First of all, let's go into the taxes. At every single time when a real estate property is sold, the state makes 7%. I'm not talking about the tax credit yet. Let's just assume that this is not involved at the moment. So whenever a million is sold through a new owner, a transcription fee and registration fee is paid to the state of 7%, meaning that 70,000, so 70K is wired from a notary right there to the state. Now that is considered a healthy salary for one of its employees, for one of the state's employees. So the state obviously, in financial terms, benefits from higher prices. They earn more on a 1 million euro sale than on a 250K sale. The state also has the obligation to provide the market with accurate numbers. The LISER and subsequently also the Observatoire de l'Habitat are the state's organs which basically give us the information about real estate prices in Luxembourg. In my opinion, they don't do their job as accurately as they could. Oftentimes, the data that we get, especially as real estate agents who in the end determine price with the owners, the sellers, are not adequate. Why? I believe that the prices or the data at least that we see is often too vague, stretched over a long period of time, sometimes an entire year, is not detailed enough in terms of what area, what street even a property was sold at what time, at what price, and we also don't have the accurate numbers between properties such as new houses, old houses, houses with X bedrooms, with so many bathrooms. If it's new build, old build, very detailed data is missing in the market. This data could simply be provided by the notaries. Putting up a simple system, an infrastructure where at every single sales deed at the notary, all the data is filled into the system would accurately provide us as agents, but also for the developers, accurate data to basically stipulate what prices a property should be listed on the market. Unfortunately, this is not the case, but is a simple solution that might already have a vigorous impact on real estate prices here in Luxembourg. The landlords are the ones that sell their properties. These can come in the form of houses or apartments. Whenever a landlord sells his unit, he or she sets forth a price. When we look at the landlords in general, we can see that there's a large percentage of the population which is landlord, so owner, occupied. Of these landlords, we also have to realize that a large portion of them have either bought their property or inherited their property pre-war or just post-war. Now, these landlords have had loans to pay, if they had any, and those loans back then were a lot more expensive than they are nowadays, meaning that the percentage that they had to pay on their mortgage payments was much higher than these new buyers are paying nowadays. Will this change? Probably, but that's a discussion for the future. What I'm getting at here is that landlords oftentimes have lived in their houses for a long period of time, but are also bombarded by the media continuously about high prices, development projects exceeding prices of new development projects, one on top of the other, prices rise. We can see it year after year, it's double digits left and right. Each commune is making huge amounts of money on the real estate market. But let's just break for a minute here. Just because the media sent us information does not mean it is actually accurate, one. And second of all, the media need your eyeballs in order to sell advertisement space. So do we really want to rely solely on the information that we get from the media? No, of course not. But unfortunately, a lot of landlords get their information either from Luxembourg Ward or from Tageblatt or maybe from RTL. And those eyeballs, of course, bring in viewership to these media companies, and these media companies need to sell that viewership to companies in order to sell their ad space. Unfortunately, a lot of landlords do not have realistic expectations of the market. And that brings us to the second issue, the agents. Once a landlord wishes to sell a property, he has a multitude of agents to choose from. Hundreds even. There's about 800 to 900 agencies on the Luxembourgish market alone. All of them are competing for a landlord's contract. That contract might be super unrealistic. Sell the property for 1 million or maybe even 300,000 overpriced just within 3 months. Impossible, but in order to assure that the competition does not get the contract, an agent sometimes will say anything, especially if in that agency the high-placed managers or the owners put tremendous pressures on these agents to bring in contracts, whatever the cost may be. The strategy here, of course, is to then bring down the price after a month or two by convincing the owner that he made a mistake, that they tried, but actually the price is not realistic. Let's bring it down a few 10,000 K or maybe even 100K in one single go. Unrealistic expectations, they also make that the prices show very unrealistic on the market itself. We can see properties for renovating with a price tag of 1 million, which is absolutely not realistic. They sit on the market, sometimes landlords do not care, and they just wait until the market has caught up with the price that they set forth maybe 6, maybe even 1 or 2 years ago, and at that moment it will be sold, not before. Some landlords don't care what the market thinks, they only want to get the price that they think they should get. Last but not least, of course, the developers. Now, a developer has an issue, and it's a continuous issue. It is not whether or not his properties will sell, because here in Luxembourg they will sell eventually, but the biggest issue that they have is continuity. And that means that they need to find plots of land or other investment opportunities to develop further. So let's say that a developer has 5 different plots of land in his portfolio. On each of these plots of land, he can develop, let's say, anywhere between 5 to 20 units. Now, would a developer basically start the development of all these 5 projects? Of course not. They would first fulfill one project, release the 10 to 20 units on that project, and then move on to the next one. Waiting brings them in more money and assures also the continuity of the business because they have their employees to pay. And of course, if they would release everything at once, they benefit from the market prices on that specific time and date. And after that, if they have no other opportunities to develop, the business basically comes to a halt, which is not what they want. They need continuity, and of course, if project 1 is finished in 2 years, the prices have risen again, and he will benefit or she will benefit from a new project yet again, being at a higher price point. Now, over 5 projects, over 10 years, that price point will go up tremendously. So a plot of land that was bought a decade ago for a certain price now brings in a lot more money than it did if it would have been developed 10 years ago, obviously. So these actors don't want to release properties quickly, fast. They want to prolong the possibility of their development endeavor. So is there a solution to the real estate price problem here in Luxembourg? Yes, there is. First off, in my opinion, we should stop using the zoning regulations we have right now. It would change tremendously if certain areas could be developed much faster and they would not be as restricted as they are. Let's imagine that tomorrow we would build 3 new villages, 3 new municipalities in Luxembourg, each bringing forth 50,000 units. In this case, in 2 years, the entire price problem would be solved. Of course, that would mean that some labor land, so basically agricultural land, would be developed, a new commune would come into existence, and from that point on, real estate prices would rapidly drop within 1 or 2 years. That would be one solution. Of course, the second solution would be to not sell them to investors, which has an impact on the rental market. If we would sell them solely to landlords who wish to live in these units and are not allowed to, let's say, sell them within the next 2 to 5 years, we would basically also halt the investor influx in Luxembourg, meaning that investors who buy property to rent them would basically not be able to do so, and the prices would stay more or less constant as well in the rental market. The rental market, of course, is strictly tied to the sales market, meaning that if a property is sold for such and such price, the price for the rent will of course be tied to that. It's no use to invest in a property which will have a low income rent. Impossible. So we would limit it to only land owned by owner. So the units have to be owned only by the owners themselves and cannot be rented out. Will this be completely possible? No, there will be some loopholes, of course, but it would solve the issue pretty much within the next 2 to 3 years. But do we really want to have a solution for this problem? I don't think so. I think that, first of all, the politicians, they benefit. In most cases, they are landlords anyway. They benefit because they get eyeballs and votes. The state benefits because as the prices go up, all their employees, all the state's employees are assured of their salaries in the future. Next up, of course, are the landlords. They are the winners whenever the prices go up. Should the price go down, are landlords actually motivated to sell? I don't think so. The agents, they sell regardless. Down market, up market, there might be more agents or less agents, but there will always be agents and they will always sell. And so the agents, in my opinion, are not really the issue here. But the other issue, of course, is the developers. The developers need to have continuity. Would the price drop, they would probably sit on those plots of land that they have in their portfolio and not develop them until the market goes up again. Obviously, if they can bridge that gap, then they will do so. So it will not bring forth more units if the price should drop considerably tomorrow. In the end, the winners of this price rise and these high prices that we see in Luxembourg are the landlords themselves, are the developers themselves, and is the state who in the end is responsible for all the land within its regions, within its borders. So in the end, My answer to the problem is that there is no problem unless you are a renter or first-time home buyer. Getting into the market becomes more and more difficult, and being a renter in this market becomes more and more expensive. But all the other actors on the field benefit from these prices. And thus, my conclusion is that the ones that own property don't see a problem and wish for the price index to rise further and further.